R&B diva Gladys Knight is up next. Let's talk. What's up, everybody, and welcome back over here to Peppy's Point of View. I'm yours truly, Peppy. And, well, let's just dive right into it. We're talking about R&B Diva's book, Gladys Knight, Between Each Line of Pain and Glory. I'm reading it for the month of August. And I know I told you guys, hey, I'm going to come at you with all of the Gladys Knight, music and so on and so forth. And yes, it's coming. I got busy. It gets busy. I'm here to tell you, it gets busy. All right. So I haven't forgotten about you guys, but don't you just love how God works? I love it. Do you guys remember when I told you all about, I was going to tell you about what happened to my music collection? Now is the time. Gladys Knight, a story in her book, made me say, this is the right time to talk to you guys about what happened to my music collection, all right? So on page, ooh, Lord have mercy, I had the page. See, don't you just hate it? Here it is. So on page 22 and 23, all right, in Gladys Knight's book, Between Each Line of Pain and Glory, she talks about her experience with music, okay, as a child. And I was like, this is the perfect time. So let's just dive right into it, okay? Whew, Lord have mercy. I was known as Little Gladys for a long time because I was named for my Aunt Gladys, a strong and dynamic woman who lived up north in a cabin in the woods on the outskirts of Detroit with her husband, Fred, and their two big black dogs, Jet and Ebony. Do you suppose there were any white folks with big white dogs named Time and Life back then? We spent every summer visiting Aunt Gladys and Uncle Fred throughout my childhood. On one visit when I was about 9 years old, I established my reputation as a mischievous child. My aunt and uncle had gone to work, so Bubba and I decided to clean all of the junk off the back porch of their cabin. While undertaking that ambitious task, we came upon a box of old 78 records, an early form of CD for you young readers. Young readers, 78s for you young readers who like CDs. Well, now CDs, they don't know anything about CDs nowadays. Interesting how time flies. And instead of tossing the box into the trash pile, we began winging the records in the air like frisbees. When Aunt Gladys came home, she was astonished to see that we had cleared the porch and thrown away all of the junk. "Where's the box of records?" she asked nervously. "We took them in the woods and zoomed them," I said. "Oh, your Uncle Frank is going to have a fit." That's not what he said. She fretted. Those were collector's items. In our very first exposure to the record industry, Bubba and I had managed to throw away about $100,000 worth of product. It was not a good omen. I know, right? She threw away all those records. So now it's time to get into my story. You want to hang on to this one. So a couple of videos back, several videos back, I showed you, my R&B Divas collection, Soul Man collection, so on and so forth. That really wasn't it. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what happened. So if you watched the first Gladys Knight video about Sister Diva in the Name of Love, then you would know that I spent the majority of my childhood, not the majority of my childhood, because as I got older in my teens, like 17, 18 years of age, you know, I was no longer, of course, at the table watching my parents and my aunts and uncles and their friends, you know, play cards. Sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't, you know, and by that time, you know, I had, you know, had other things to do. I'll put it that way. So of course, you know, I would leave the house and then I'll come back, and trust me, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, my parents and my aunts and uncles, they were still playing cards. Okay. So anywho, so as I'm standing there watching my mother, aunts and uncles, and my dad play, you know, spades, all of them play spades and, you know, deuces and all of that stuff, or pity pat, I was listening to their music that they were playing. And of course, as you already know, I've gravitated towards, you know, music. I'm watching BET, I'm watching MTV, so on and so forth, reading the back of Jet magazines to see the you know, top 20 singles, the top 20 albums, and then, you know, going over to Video Soul. Couldn't wait till Friday when Donnie Simpson would do, you know, the Video Soul countdown, so on and so forth. So as I was getting older and I had a job, you know, in high school, you know, I had a part-time job. I don't know why the back of my ears itching, but anyway, if you would look for me, you know, even as a kid, but growing up, I would still go to the record store. And so there I am, I'm in the record store. I am literally, when I get paid, I would get paid on that Monday and that Tuesday. You better believe I was at the record store, all right? And because I read the back of album covers and read album credits, so on and so forth, I was familiar with several artists by name. Long story short, so when I would go in, I didn't necessarily have a system for looking for music when I would go into the record store. Sometimes I knew the music that I wanted to look for because, of course, you know, they were, you know, the videos and so on and so forth would be played on television. Or I would hear a song on TV, on the radio, but not see the video. Anyway, so what I would do, literally, I had to devise a plan on how I was going to find music. And the only thing my young mind could think of at the time was just go in and shop, right? Column A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on and so forth. So that's what I would do. I would go down the rows. I would go to the wall first, and I would just look up and down. And then after I would look through, you know, look on the back of the wall, because that's where the cassettes would be. In the middle of the store, as you know, they would have the CDs and they would have the other records out. Anyway, so here's a prime example. So let's just say, for instance, I had Whitney Houston's album, and I saw that Lala had wrote and produced a song on her album. So when I get to the L's and I see Lala, I'm like, oh, I know that name. That's the name that, you know, I think wrote and produced, you know, You Give Good Love. Of course, she wrote it, but I'm giving you an example. I know she didn't produce it, but I'm just saying. So I'll be like, oh, okay, that's Lala. So I would probably pull her cassette and I would purchase it. So that's how I devised up a plan in order to find music. Sometimes I would purchase music simply based off the album cover. There's no reason for me to, you know, tell a tale. You know, I was like, oh, okay, this looks kind of interesting, the album cover. I wonder what this is about. Sometimes you don't know what you're getting when that happens. But for the most part, some of them I ended up kind of liking. So now at this moment in time, I am gathering up my music collection. I am so known in the record store. I kid you not. They actually know me when I come in. I mean, literally. And so one day I recall being in the record store looking for my music. And I heard one of the customer service representatives speaking to a customer asking about a record, a song. And I just flat out told him, I was like, well, I don't know if that artist sings that song, but I do know of an artist who has recorded that song before, so on and so forth. And, you know, I told the person about who had a song out, who did a rendition of that song that I liked. And true enough, she took it. She was like, okay, well, I'll try it and see. Because she was looking for the song. She wasn't looking for a song of an actual, you know, person. She didn't say that. Anyway, so she buys the record, she leaves. So, of course, I got all of mine. Like sometimes I'm 10, 15 cassettes deep, really. And I'm talking about cassette singles as well. Like I'm deep in it, like coming to the counter. And so the guy, you know, he was like, well, I have to give you a discount. He was like, because you bought the record and I didn't know anything about it. So, you know, he gave me my discount and I kept moving on, right? So then I learned that I could actually order music out of the book, you know, and I would go and I would ask them, do you have, you know, this artist record? And they would say, no, but we can order it for you. I'm like, huh, order it? It was like, yeah, you can order it. And so he went over to this book. And of course, you know, he, you know, writing down numbers, so on and so forth. And I didn't know, I always knew the book was sitting there, but I never knew why. It's like a big size book, like a big dictionary. And so, of course, I didn't have to ask them anymore. So when I would go in, I would just basically, you know, say, hey, I want to order this record. And I would go in, write down everything on the slip and give it to them. And true enough, by week's end, you know, the record would be there, you know, to say, hey, come on in and pick up your record. I think at that time you had to pay maybe like $2 or $3, you know, on it. And so anyway, I'm going somewhere. Just bear with me. So now I'm at the table, you guys. I'm standing there at the table with my aunts and uncles, my mother, my dad, everybody, their friends. And now I have acquired so much music, like a lot of music, that now my mom and my dad, they're saying, hey, you know, can you go upstairs and, you know, bring down your records? I'm like, okay, because I was like, wow, you know, and so I would put them in, but trust me, you guys, I was very, very, very mindful about who handled my music. I was like, if I wasn't doing it, if I wasn't playing the music, you couldn't touch it. So anyway, and so just listening to them, and this is the thing that really got me, that really made me want to buy more music, is when, and they're older, of course, and they're saying, man, I remember that song, like you have that song. You know, and then they will start requesting that I play certain music. You know, they was like, do you have this one? I was like, no, but I have this one. So that's what I would do, you know, and then people, you know, in my neighborhood realized that, you know, I had a nice, you know, music collection. And, you know, sometimes they're coming down, they would, you know, ask, you know, could they, you know, sorry, music artists out there, they said, can I record that? I was like, okay, fine, you know, and I let them, you know, do that. So now it's getting interesting, isn't it? Well, as I told you guys, I love the Lord. So one day, out of the blue, my mom, she comes, we're outside, and my mom, she tells us to, you know, come in the house to get ready. And we was like, what? Get ready to go? Where are we going? You know, and she didn't say anything. You know, she just said, come on, let's go get ready. And the next thing I know, as I'm looking, you know, she's telling us, you know, we got to, you know, put the, you know, the dress shirt on and the dress pants on. I'm like, okay, she's still not saying anything to us, right? At least to me. I was like, okay. And when I finally realized we were on our way to church, we're pulling up on the church grounds, going into the church building. And I'm looking around trying to figure out what's going on because I knew that it was, matter of fact, it could have been a Monday or a Tuesday. So I'm like, okay, we in church, like what's going on, you know? And I knew, you know, it was my family's church, the church my family attends. So I'm knowing the people who are there. And I'm saying like, what's going on here? You know, just kind of like looking around a little bit. And then I'm seeing some of some of my family members who are ushers coming up to my mom and saying to my mom, I overhear them saying, you know what, you're doing the right thing, you know, so on and so forth, you know, like, God bless you, you know, you're doing the right thing, you know, it's time, you know, that's what they're saying. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, I'm here to tell y'all, when I tell y'all, sometimes I'm just not thinking about things, I'm really not. So the next thing I know is that my cousin, who is the usher, she takes us, she was like, come on, you guys, go sit up front. So we're going up front. That's where we are. We're about to sit up front. I'm like, oh, now things are clicking in, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. And so then there's a pastor, I'll take the back, the Reverend, he comes out. I know him. He lives in my community or community neighborhood. So he comes out, he goes up on the pulpit, and I'm like, he's going to preach tonight. And I said to myself, like, because I'm friends with his daughter. And so I was like, oh, okay. You know, I'm looking like I've never heard him preach before, but, you know, he was the Reverend, you know, he already, you know, it was friends, my friend's father. So he already had my respect anyway, you know. So I'm like, wow, I'm going to hear him preach. I've never heard him preach before. As a matter of fact, they live down the house. They live down a couple of houses from me. Anywho, and there we are. Okay, there we are. And again, we are, you know, we're about to give our life over to God, you know, and it's clicking. It's really truly clicking to me that this is happening. And it happens. It is what it is. It's revival. So it's happening, you know, the week, you know, revival weekend. So now we are what I guess you would call official members of the church. It's no longer just my family church and we're attending. I guess, well, how does that work back then? I don't know. But anyway, now we've given our life over to God. We are members of the church. It's the family church. It is what it is. So now as I am going through that particular experience and I'm getting older, I'm getting closer and closer to God, I'm still into my music, and I'm getting older. I guess you could say you're kind of going through the motions. I don't know. You know, it's just my own personal experience. Long story short. So now I'm hanging around some people who are my age, a tad bit younger, who I guess you could say is serious about the Lord, you know, and just so happen to have been talking, I guess, about music, and they're saying, well, why are you listening to R&B music? You should be listening to gospel music, so on and so forth. So you can imagine where this story is going. Long story short story long. So I'm kind of torn with this at this moment, years later. Like when I tell you I had music in crates, I had music, of course, in the CD covers. You know, I had music just all over the place. I think even I had music in a cooler, like one of those little, I guess you want to call it like those lunch look coolers that they're not, yeah, the little plastic coolers. So I had music in those. Oh my gosh, I had cassette singles. I had albums. Oh, I had the latest music at the time. Oh my gosh. It was just a lot of music. And I remember one day being torn with it with listening to R&B music and then deciding, should I listen to only gospel music? And I don't know. I was like, well, I didn't want to give it away. I didn't want to do that. I was just like, well, Lord, if it's not good for me, it's not good for them. So why would I give away, the music? So one day, after being torn with it, I just said, forget it. It's what it is. And I did what I thought I would never do. I put all my music up in the car, and I went to this garbage, to this dumpster, and I threw it all away. Yeah, I threw all my music in the garbage can, all of it, like just throwing it in there, you guys. And by this time, I had also started listening to gospel music as well. So, of course, as you know, I didn't throw away any of the gospel music, but all of the R&B music, all of that music. And let me tell you, like, oh gosh, like, yes, I can't, I mean, I'm just so overwhelmed thinking about it and talking about it that I just threw it away. And I went back home, and just continued to focus on my love for God, embracing gospel music. Ooh, that's another story. I think I might talk to you about that too. Ooh, child, that's a whole nother story. And so embracing, just, I guess, really committing my life. When I say committing my life to God, like, I guess you want to call it the straight and narrow, if you will. Whew. And when my sisters and brothers and my mom, everybody found out that I had threw it away, because I didn't tell them. They just one day just asked for it, listen to music. I was like, oh, I got rid of it. And they already knew about my walk with God. It wasn't, anything like that. They knew about it. And so they were like, well, why did you give it to me? That's what someone was saying. Like, I would have took it. I was like, well, if it's not good for me, it's not good for you guys, And so they was like, what? But, life, I don't regret that experience. I don't. It was just something I needed to experience personally for myself. I don't think it was a test. I don't think it was any of those things. I really don't. I just think that what it came down to was the fact that, I felt that maybe I should do this. I was definitely someone, even though I heard the beat of my own drum, everybody else, I would dance to others' music. I really would. And I'm glad it happened, because sometimes I don't want to talk about certain things just because. I would just put it this way. You see people live their life in a particular way, and you look up to these people, I guess you would say. Anybody. When I say these people, I'm talking about just people in general. You look up to people. You never look at a person, for me, like they were flawed. You understand? And I think that was the lesson for me that I eventually learned, is that people, we're just flawed. We all have flaws. We've all have sinned and fallen short. Not making any excuses for anyone at all, not even for myself, but basically saying you have to walk this thing out between you and God. That's why I feel like, when he says nothing separates us from the love of God, it's because of that personal walk that you have to have with him. And I think that that's what happened for me. Looking back, that was my first lesson in my own personal walk. So today I can stand before you and talk to you guys about R&B divas. But I could talk to you guys about it in a totally different manner than what I would say back then, or how I felt back then, because I definitely was a fanatic. Like, trust me, when you talk about Right On and Word Up magazines and reading them, and then, my whole room was pictures of En Vogue and all of the other artists. I promise you, like this, I'm here to tell you, it ain't no joke. That was my experience, and it was also my escape. And just looking around, and I guess you could see about the posters, so on and so forth, glued into the television set can tell you things, about music right off the bat, that I had to learn now, I guess, how to balance that, because there's still some music that I won't listen to. There's still some artists that I won't get into. Even if I like the music, I'll be like, that's a little too much. And so throwing away my music collection was definitely bittersweet. So now I guess the question would be, well, you threw it away, so what did we see? What you have seen was my attempt. It was my attempt to get it back. Yeah. That was my attempt to get it back. And what made me decide to want to do that? Because after a while, I was saying to myself, like, maybe I had to talk about gospel music to talk to you about that one. Yeah. You know how I do it. Sometimes I leave you just kind of like, you're going to cut it off right there? Yeah, it's 30 minutes into it. It's 30 minutes. And trust me, I have some things to do. I have to hurry up and get out of this house because I have some things to do. And I was trying to squeeze in a video about gladysknight real quick. But just know, gospel music in it and of itself, the gospel industry, is probably what made me decide, hey, do your own thing, kid. Just love God. Just love him. Love him with your whole heart, your mind, your body, your soul. Love him with every fiber of your being. Just love him, and he'll take care of the rest for you. And so that's pretty much basically what happened. And so I like this, what I do, This is a good book, you guys, by the way. Gladysknight has a good book. It's a good book. Anyway, we're going to stop on that note. We're going to stop. Oh, well, if you've gotten to this point of the video, then you know what I think is very appropriate to say, hey, if you like what I'm about, hang out with me. There's a lot of R&B divas to cover, a lot of things regarding R&B divas we can cover. So go ahead on and hit that subscribe button. Be so kind and be so nice, because I believe God blesses those that bless you, and he curses those that curse you. You understand what I'm saying? So why don't you just be a blessing and hit that subscribe button and hang out with me and talk about R&B divas. And remember, whenever I leave my mother's presence, she says, baby, remember, I love you, but God loves you best, and I love you. I hope you're also loving yourself. That's the lesson that I've also had to come to realize. Love yourself. Love you completely, totally, unconditionally. Love yourself, because I'm here to tell you, if you're not loving you, you're not doing too good. You're doing too good. I understand you might be loving people. Love yourself. Well, anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing you next video. And until then, you know what to do. Take care of yourselves out there.